What's up, everybody? We are back after a very, very long hiatus of 2 weeks, but we're glad to be back, and there's a lot of space news, so we're just going to dive right into it. What's up, everybody? So, lots of space news to talk about, and we're going to start off right here in America with the greatest country on Earth, specifically talking about NASA's recent construction has recently begun on the Osiris-Rex mission.
Osiris-Rex is a mission to recover some sort of dust or like pebble samples from the surface of an asteroid. The Japanese actually have a mission doing a very similar job that's launched a few years ago, so they'll both be performing very similar tasks.
Right. So Osiris-Rex actually stands for a very long, confusing thing that I actually have to read out to you. So it's Origins, Spectral, Interpretation, Resource, Identification, Security, Regolith, Explorer. That's why we shorten these things to things like Osiris-Rex, and now you know where the name comes from. So the construction began just last month by Lockheed Martin has begun assembly of the actual spacecraft itself, and it's set to launch later this next
2016.
year. Yeah, September 2016, where it'll go out to a nearby asteroid and, like Kevin said, dig up some stuff on the surface.
And then return it to Earth.
Right. Now, this has nothing to do with the ARM mission or the asteroid redirect mission, which has
been kind of revised because of budget constraints. The idea of actually capturing an entire asteroid and then bringing it back into orbit around the moon for astronauts to study later has been downsized to having a robot pick up a boulder from the surface of an asteroid, which starts to run into redundancy problems with these other missions.
Right. But the whole point, I mean, besides that, the mission is basically the same. They're going to grab a boulder, bring it back, and put it in lunar orbit so that astronauts can actually go and study it. And this is sort of just practice for when we go to Mars and hopefully the Phobos and what's the other moon?
Deimos.
And Deimos. The moons about on Mars, so we can get practice of dealing with this sort of thing. But that's not the only thing that happened.
Right. So lots has been happening in Russia. Now, lately, the Expedition 43 crew, which includes 2 astronauts that are going up to the ISS for an entire year, recently launched, and NASA Chief Administrator Charlie Bolden was there in Russia during that. And while he was there, he was able to have multiple meetings with the Russian Space Agency and talk about their collaborations. And now this kind of leads into some disagreements. One thing that everyone agrees on right now is that Russia and NASA want to start working out details about a shared manned mission to Mars, because they both say that, okay, it's too expensive for one group.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, everyone agrees, almost every space agency knows that's the next point, that we're going to Mars. But in order to take this endeavor, no one can do it on their own. So we need to do an international cooperation sort of deal. And in particular, the U.S. and Russia have been working together in space for the past 30 years or so. Yeah. So, I mean, why not work with the team that we already have? But Russia kind of has some other ideas that NASA's not exactly on board with.
So, one of the Russian administrators said that they and NASA were going to partner up for whatever space station is after the International Space Station.
ISS-2.
And NASA said, okay, that's great, but we didn't agree to that yet.
Yeah.
So
not in my house.
So now, I mean, I'm sure NASA would be fine with another collaboration after the success of the ISS. Sure. But there seems to just be this disconnect in communication on some projects.
Especially since in one of our previous videos we talked about how Russia was talking about how they were going to take their pieces of the ISS with them when the ISS mission ended. So it seems to me like somebody's not talking to somebody else in Russia, and namely those people aren't talking to us, or the wrong people are talking to us.
Yeah.
But hey, Russia, we'd love to help collaborate with you in space, because space is a whole thing for all of mankind. So
exactly.
But they need to actually get off the ground first, specifically Russia, and they're currently running into some troubles there.
So the Baikonur Cosmodrome, their main launch site, is actually in another country, Kazakhstan, because they built it during the USSR days, and then the USSR split up. And so Russia has to negotiate with Kazakhstan to use the spaceport. Now, this usually always ends up in Russia's favor, but it's a hassle that they just don't want to have to deal with anymore.
Right. So right now, in order for us to get our astronauts up to the space station, we have to ride on a Russian rocket. So we actually pay Russia to send us up there. And Russia has to pay Kazakhstan in order to use their launch site. So they are making a profit, just not as much as they'd like. So by building their own cosmodrome, which is being called, what is it?
The Vostochny Spaceport.
Vostochny Spaceport, aka Cosmodrome. They would be able to control all of that and not have to spend as much money to send astronauts up into space.
It would be further east in Russia and closer to the ocean, so they could actually do water landings a bit more, because they don't have very much experience with that.
Right, and they'd also be able to give access to other Asian space agencies that don't have their own flight facilities, so they'd be able to rent it out and also make more income that way.
Yeah. But this is still Russia.
Yes.
And the Russian winter is still the greatest enemy to Russia to date. So it's run into quite a few delays.
Right. So it was supposed to be on track to open in 2018. Right now, because of the harsh winter, it slowed down construction, as well as the need for 1,200 students to go out and work there this summer. That has been sort of impacted as well.
Low-skill labor,
yes.
I think they called it.
Right. So that's very interesting. I don't think NASA would ever allow 1,200 students of any level to be working on any of our
Help with the
launch
construction.
sites. Yes. And then there's also the matter of internal corruption.
Right. So many, at least two construction managers have been replaced by now. And at this point, they've started installing these public access webcams on the construction site,
right,
so that anyone on the internet can see if people are working or slacking off, and they're trying to use this as an encouragement for people to actually work and not slack off.
It's not a bad idea. It actually makes a whole lot of sense, and it could be a great way for students to be able to see, oh, this is how a spaceport is built. But of course, you're still going to run into problems, and namely the deputy prime minister. You might have heard this guy before, Dmitry Rogozin. I think that's how his name is pronounced. After all this corruption started breaking out, he had a very specific quote that involved decapitation, and I will read this quote to you now. It is, "I will not allow sabotage. I'll simply rip heads off." And that was in terms of the construction of the Vostochny Cosmodrome. Now, this guy is also most famous for the whole
telling NASA to use a trampoline to get to the ISS.
There it is.
So he's a character.
He's a character. And it's very interesting to hear him level these threats, but I kind of understand, because when you're running into this many problems, when you're trying to become a more self-sufficient space agency, you're kind of upset.
It's very frustrating.
Very frustrating, yeah. But seriously, good luck to Russia. I've seen the plans for what this thing's supposed to look like. It looks like a futuristic airport, which is amazing. Because, I mean, this is going to be a step forward towards having more frequent flights into space, which is good for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's plenty more space news. We'll catch you up next week as well. You can also check out our blog, which I plan to have every Wednesday from now. We're going to have a new post that'll detail one or two stories that we might not get to in our videos for that week, as well as we'll also start trying to do more astronomical images of the day, because those are cool when you like space.
Everyone likes pretty pictures.
Everyone likes pretty pictures. Everyone also likes swag. You should buy some swag, support the show. We have mugs and t-shirts over at outofspacetv.spreadshirt.com. That'll help us get better facilities and better cameras, and we'll look sexier for you guys. And science is sexy. We want you guys to know how sexy science is, and it'll help if we're sexy and you're sexy, because you'll be wearing the shirt.
How many times have you said sexy?
I don't know, but people like the word. I see this on the Nielsen ratings all the time. Anyway, thank you for watching.
Thank you.
We'll see you out there.
Thanks for watching today's video. You can like and subscribe down below, as well as comment on all the different subjects that we talked about today. You can find other content elsewhere on the internet, so look for those links. You can also watch a random video of our channel right here. Thanks for watching.